So now I'd love to introduce our next guest, Chase Diamond from Structured. He is the founder there, and today he'll be chatting with you guys about how AI is revolutionizing e-commerce marketing automation.
Excited to
Chase,
be here.
welcome.
Thanks for having me. How's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. I've been tuning into the last session and a couple others. It's been a great day so far, it seems like.
Yeah, it's been a lot, lots of information, but still more to come. And I feel like the sessions are short, sweet, but definitely impactful.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited. Hello, everyone. As mentioned, going to be talking about really leveraging AI within email marketing to make sure that you're doing more content, making more money. If you're an agency, being able to take on more clients. If you're a brand, being able to drive more revenue and just frankly do a lot more with less. So I'm an email marketer nerd, partner at an agency, etc. Let's just dive in. So okay, so today we're talking about three primary things. The first is I want to talk about kind of the content creation piece. I think this is a really large bottleneck for a lot of people. Creating so much content is difficult. The next part is like the segmentation piece. So, along with the content we're creating, how do we get better and smarter at segmentation? So that way those two work hand in hand. And then lastly, right, tying that all in with personalization. So all of these things are really intertwined. So that way all your emails will perform much better and be way more relevant. So you'll drive more revenue per subscriber, hopefully drive fewer unsubscribes and spam complaints, etc. So starting at the top, I think like the big issue here with content creation is, the data shows that 60% of us are spending our time on content versus strategy. I've done it. I'm sure a lot of you guys done it. We're just so busy in the day to day of all the content creation needs that it's hard for us to pick our heads up and really think about like, are we creating the right content? Are we moving the needle? What types of things would we be creating? Not having enough time to research what our customers want. What are our competitors doing? So when you spend all your time doing the content, or at least the bulk majority of it, it just gives you so little time to do all the other things that you need to do. And it's almost like if you want to do all the other things you need to do, you're going to have to work two shifts, right? You're going to have to work so much longer and so much harder. So the reality is most of us are stuck in these content creation loops where we should be focusing on what I mentioned, strategy, insights, and optimization. And with this, right, I think it leads, like if you're a business owner or a leader of an organization, I think it leads to a lot of marketers and content creators just burning out. They're just becoming content factories, and they're just missing the boat because it's really hard to be creative. It's really hard to do the job that you're supposed to do when you're just burdened by not never ending content, right? And if you are the person creating content, you probably can resonate and relate to this as well. So finding a way to implement a strategy leveraging AI and systems like this, so that way you're not just creating content every single day, hour after hour, minute after minute. And with this, right, like the next part of this, right, like the challenge is like every customer segment that you create should have unique messaging, right? And you should create kind of personalized content for those folks. But doing this at scale is super hard. So the reality is, right, that like everyone just sends generic mass messages, or they're spending weeks upon weeks creating these campaigns. And by the time that you're finished, it's like, there still might be revisions. You don't actually know if you created the right content. So it's just a pain to figure out like how to do this and making sure that you're doing the right thing and it's actually performing and you're not burning out. So it's very hard. And with AI, right, I'm sure a lot of people are using things like ChatGPT and Claude and, you know, Canva and this, that, and the other. The benefit of being able to do that and tying that into your email program and frankly, probably your ads and your landing pages and the entirety of it is you're going to be able to create way more content. B, it's going to be able to check all the grammar and all of that and making sure that you don't have errors because when you're creating so much content, your brain is probably fried. And it's probably the last thing you want to do is go read all the stuff that you just wrote and check everything. So with the AI part, right, like as you can imagine, right, being able to do this type of stuff within, minutes, not days and weeks, while being able to maintain the brand voice and authenticity is super important. So if you're an agency, it's something like creating kind of specific, maybe custom GPTs for a client. So whatever hat I'm wearing. I think it's like a Travis Matthew hat. Like, Travis Matthew, if they're your client, maybe they have a custom GPT where you train it. Like, this is the tone, this is the voice. Here are things we wrote in the past that the brand approved. Here's how they like to communicate. Or even just building out like a custom chat within one of these platforms where you're just teaching and training and kind of updating and optimizing everything so that way kind of the AI knows exactly what it's going to do. And it does take iterations. It's not like it's going to nail it overnight. And you still should be, contributing. It's not like the AI is going to write the entirety of it. You still need to be involved. You still need to be, it's almost like your team member, right? It's almost like your assistant that's going to be there working with you and for you. It shouldn't do the entirety of it, but it should do a lot of the heavy lifting for you that you're probably doing today. And with this, like, so what makes AI content better, right? Like, there's a lot of back and forth on like humans are better, AI is better. No, the best thing is AI plus human. But like, what I really like about AI generated content and why I'm seeing it convert is it's very data driven. So when you're giving it the right inputs, when you're giving it the right data, the right reviews, the right tone and voice, the right customer insights, if you're using things like ChatGPT, deep search, where they're going to do a bunch of research on your customer type and other brands, etc., they're able to analyze and even also to feeding into your ESP, they're able to analyze just so much content that for us would just make our brain numb. Like my brain is just fried thinking about trying to analyze the amount of content and data that AI could do in its sleep, right? So it's going to help you understand like what are the conversion patterns that humans miss. A lot of times we'll run subject lines and we just never actually ever look at like why something won. We'll see like, oh, version A versus version B, version A did better, but we don't actually understand why it worked. And we don't then use that typically. I'm speaking generally, maybe some of you guys do, but we don't typically use that then to inform the next subject line test and the next subject line test. Whereas AI, it's going to do all of this for you without you even having to think about it. The next part is I think a lot of people get this wrong. I think a lot of people don't think that their AI understands emotional intelligence and doesn't understand. I actually think if you give it the right inputs, it does. Where I think AI can understand the right emotional triggers that do drive different customer segments to take action. And with that too, like as a copywriter, as a marketer, as a creator, it is really hard to be able to write content for, let's call it 5 to 7 different customer types. You personally might be able to resonate, let's call it 1 to 3, 2 to 4, but there's going to be some that you're just flying blind with it. You can't relate to them. So it's really hard for you to get in their shoes and write in their tone and voice in a way in which connects with them. And AI, I think, is a really great way to augment that, right? Maybe your split is, hey, I'm going to write for the 1 to 3 customer types that I personally understand the best. And I'll let AI kind of rock and roll for the 1 to 3 that I don't really understand. That's a great way to divvy it up. The other part too is like the contextual relevance. So AI is considering everything from like timing to where someone's at in their customer journey. It's very challenging for us to understand where each individual subscriber is in their journey. Sure, you can use segmentation, you can use custom attributes and etc. And that's pretty good, but it's not going to get you the entirety of the way there where AI can get you all, if not mostly there. So this is going to help you really understand the behavioral data and tie everything together. So that way your messages do deliver at times that are the most relevant for me versus you versus him versus her, etc. And then the last part too, I think this is a big one. AI is just learning at such a rapid speed and pace where like for us, we're all smart, we're all learning, etc. But like our learning potential is it has some kind of caps. With the AI, every single minute, day, hour that it's learning and kind of being fed things, it is getting so much better and so much smarter. And the things that happen in weeks, it's just incredible with like the advancements and not. So this is why I'm really bullish on being able to leverage AI for content, where I think a lot of people still maybe are on the fence about it a little bit. Okay, so the next part, like a lot of people say, is it's really hard to get my brand right with AI at scale. And that can be a challenge. It does take a little bit of finesse and it does take a little bit of prompting. And it does take a little bit of kind of back and forth. But once you kind of have those conversations and you teach the AI, it does do quite a good job at actually understanding your existing content, your existing tone, your existing voice to sound a lot like you. Is it going to be 100% you or the brand? Probably not. but can it get you 85, 90, 95% of the way there? Yeah, in most cases it actually can, unless it's super, super specific and unique and rare and whatever. But those are very few and far between. 99% of people could and should be able to use AI for, their specific use cases. And it's very scalable, right? So when you can create this type of content that sounds like your brand or at least close enough, and then you can kind of just top it off, you can then create dozens of variations, in the time it took you to write maybe a handful before. And then the quality control. So this will help you make sure that things are consistent across all channels, not just email, but email, SMS, push, CX, right? CS, ads, landing pages, like you name it. It will really help. And I think, as I mentioned before, like when someone's burning out, just creating so much content, even them writing the content doesn't start to sound like themselves when they're 10 hours into writing content in a given day, or they're 20 hours into writing content in a given week. Even though you were writing it, it might not sound as much like you as you think if you're writing it yourself, if you're burning out. So AI doesn't burn out, and it's really great for a lot of this. I'm not looking quite at the answers or the chat, I guess, but I'm going to look at it after. I'd be really curious for people that are creating content or in these content type roles, copywriters, marketers, etc. Which one of the following, or maybe it's all of the following, which are your current kind of biggest content challenges? I'm just going to let you read that real quick, so I don't have to read them. But A, B, C, D, or kind of A plus B, B and C. I'm curious. I'll look in a little bit on kind of like where that boils down. So the next part is segmentation, right? So segmentation, content creation, they're very intertwined where you either pick a segment and then you figure out what content to create for that segment, or you pick the content and then you figure out what segment makes sense, right? So I think the reason that traditional segmentation is failing or maybe isn't as optimized as it could be is a few things. I think historically we've relied entirely on things like demographics, right? Age, gender, location. That's great. It's helpful to be able to personalize content, but it doesn't tell you that much about what someone could or should do or what someone maybe is interested in buying, right? That's one piece. The other part too is like a lot of these traditional segments, they don't evolve with changing customer behavior. So if you're using something like an engaged segment, whether someone's opened or clicked, it's like, cool, that's great. That tells us that people are engaged, but it doesn't tell us much else. So you really do need to kind of layer in some of the stuff I'm about to talk about to make sure that you're capturing someone at a specific moment in time and knowing that those moments in time do evolve and do change. The other problem too is like people still today in 2025 are doing broad segmentations, broad categories that really miss kind of the nuances of individual customer journeys. Two people that joined at the same time that have both been engaged, that both are the same age, same gender, and same location, what they might be interested in could be very, very, very different. And I've seen people talk about this before with like Ozzy Osbourne and I don't know if it was like Prince Charles or someone where like on paper they were the exact same, but in reality, if you actually know who their personalities are, the type of stuff that they're going to convert and be interested in are very, very different, right? And then manual complexity, right? So with all of this, you have to create and maintain segments, and then it's like now you're a segmentation manager, right? If you do this the right way, you could have dozens and dozens of segments, and they need to evolve, they need to change, they need to update, you need to understand the data. It's just a lot, right? It's kind of shocking now before this AI stuff that we are able to do as well as we had been without it. Like I can't imagine life without the AI now that we have it. Just makes it so much easier and so much more efficient. And then here's just examples, right? Demographic located in a specific spot. Behavioral will be something like, you looked at specific items and then history like purchased, right? So being able to incorporate all of this in, kind of evergreen, always changing, always updating segments is definitely the future. So in terms of like the behavioral intelligence revolution, right? So AI basically is going to read customer intent through micro actions. And this is the way in which we want to evolve kind of some of our segmentations and therefore how we're actually and when we're actually communicating with people. So in terms of browse patterns, right? Um, the AI is going to understand how customers view products, how long they spend on products, and what they compare. And even too, like, what are they reading? Are they reading kind of FAQs? Are they reading about your company? Are they reading blog posts about a specific item that they also were viewing or adding to cart? Like, what does that look like? And they're going to track them. I know it sounds creepy, but they're going to track them across all of these different micro actions to build really rich segmentation and really rich segments that allow you to really send really great content. And the problem today is like, it doesn't make sense to ever create campaigns for 100 people or 500 people if you have a large list. You really want to focus on like the 80-20 and build out campaigns when you're doing it manually for larger, kind of broader segments. So now it's like you can actually create really specific, smaller subsets of segments that are going to perform infinitely better, that go to small groups of people because you're going to leverage AI to create the content. It's not that big of a lift anymore, which is going to be fantastic. So instead of like maybe one campaign going out a day or one campaign going out every other day to a really large number of people, let's say like let's just say for easy math, 10,000 people, you might have like half a dozen or a dozen campaigns going out to groups of 250, 500, 1,000, maybe 2,500 instead. So you're gonna have more campaigns to smaller groups that are gonna perform way better. And then the other part too, right, is the engagement signal piece. And obviously, iOS, I think it's the newest one just came out recently. A lot of stuff there around email, SMS, etc. Opens, clicks, whatever. All those things are changing. But the great part about the AI is it's going to be able to understand email opens. Was it bot clicks? Was it legitimate? Was it Apple's mail privacy protection thing? What are people clicking? How often are they clicking? What time are they engaging with these emails? And with that, it's going to take all of those types of things and be like, all right, Chase opens the most at 10:27 a.m. PST, and he converts the most at this time, whatever. Or Chase opens the most at 10:27 a.m. PST, but he actually converts the most at 6 p.m. PST or 9 p.m. PST or 12 p.m. PST, like whatever that looks like. That's another part of it. And then kind of like the purchase journey. So in terms of like where people are they brand new? Have they engaged with kind of your welcome series? Are they coming back to your site multiple times? Are they also engaging on SMS or push? Like, what does that look like? When did they buy? How much did they spend? All of these things, again, like even just talking about it, it's overwhelming to think about these things manually. And then intent scoring. So on the B2B side, especially, a lot of people do like lead scoring, intent scoring, whereas with ecom and kind of B2C, it's probably few and far between where anyone's doing intent scoring and understanding specifically based off of, a predefined rubric and guide, how someone is on that scale. And lastly, to kind of summarize this title slide is like this is going to allow you to understand from awareness through re-engagement where people fall, and it's not like linear. People might go from awareness to consideration back to awareness, or they might go from awareness, consideration, purchase, and then they might fall off, and you need to then re-engage them. So really understanding this is super important. All right, so now I want to talk about something called RFM. So RFM, if you're not familiar with it, stands for recency, frequency, and monetary value. And it's been a very kind of old school, traditional way. Not a lot of people use it, although a lot of people probably should be using it. But it's been a way that tells you kind of what happens. How recently did someone buy? How often does someone buy? And when they purchase, how much do they spend? And there's kind of like these clever names for each one where I think it's like ex-lovers and soulmates. And there's kind of different names so you can kind of understand like which group is which type of a thing. But kind of the new model of this is taking this kind of old school proven RFM model. And instead of focusing on like what's happened historically, how do you actually predict what's going to happen? So how do you leverage AI to forecast the future behavior? So what's the pattern and trends that they're seeing across your store? And they also have access, just kind of through some other type of stuff, probably to larger data sets to understand like what macro and kind of micro, economic stuff is happening right now. The world we live in is absolutely crazy. Every day there's something sad and crazy and bizarre and just insane, I guess, for lack of a better word, happening. Being able to tie in some of those things as well is super important, especially with leveraging demographics, intent, who your customer is or isn't. Certain groups of people are more effective versus not. Like, there's just so much of this stuff that you just have to understand and know. And it's frankly hard because we all have lives outside of our jobs, and it's hard to be like omnipresent. It's just, I guess, frankly impossible. And then with this, as we kind of talked about too, like leveraging AI for the dynamic segmentation is super important. So allowing customers to automatically move between segments and whatnot as their behavior changes is the only way in which you can actually predict what's going to come. And the predictions aren't 100% right, but it's giving us the direction and the sense in a much more educated way than we're kind of collecting and getting today. And then even things like LTV, lifetime value prediction. So AI will help you understand pretty early on in a customer's journey which customers are most likely to become your most valuable over time. And that will allow you to go above and beyond for those, right? Then you're looping in things like maybe CX or CS, where maybe you're writing them handwritten notes and sending them a postcard if AI is identifying me or you as someone that's high value being able to just go above and beyond for them early on really is going to help kind of handhold them to get there. And we're not trying to be manipulative, but we're trying to be helpful. How do we add the most value to them so they add value back to us? How do we make sure that it's a reciprocal kind of agreement and arrangement? And then also too, right? Like the flip side of it is not only is it going to help us drive and make more money, but it's actually going to help us to prevent churn. How do we reduce unsubscribes? How do we reduce lapsed customers? How do we get people, to stop canceling their subscriptions? All those types of things. So, how do we identify these people 30 to 60 days before they potentially could leave? So the way in which we're going to do that, right, is AI will give warnings and they're going to detect changes in kind of patterns. So if someone was opening a bunch of emails, clicking a bunch of emails, responding to emails, doing a bunch of things, but they kind of cooled off for a period of time, it's like, all right, how do we engage them early? How do we kind of rope and kind of loop them back in? Intervention, right? So automated campaign triggers at the optimal moment to re-engage customers. So timing with email is everything, right? Um, if someone's traveling, if someone's busy, if it's BFCM, like there's so many different reasons in understanding why someone might happen. Maybe someone won't engage with your emails or SMS, but the AI detects it there on your website. Then they'll start triggering maybe like a push notification or a pop-up or a flyout that tries to get them like, hey, we've been trying to reach you. You good? Click yes or no, right? Just kind of maybe even to then being like, hey, we need to run retargeting ads on Meta to or Google or whatever, TikTok, whatever you're using to try to get these people kind of re-warmed up and aware of us. Personalized retention. So the AI is going to be really helpful at suggesting, very specific offers and content based on what people are doing. Again, I think a lot of people aren't taking advantage of like what blog posts are people reading? Where are they on the site? What collection are they looking at? People are doing stuff for specific individual products, but on a broader scale, like what are they doing and what types of things does that tell us, right? And then the last part is like success measurement. How are we figuring out what's moving the needle and what's not? So being able to figure out what works best for different customer types and working with AI to identify this.